Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, March 30th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief for Real Clear Politics. Tom, 40 years ago today at the Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C., would-be assassin nearly killed Ronald Reagan.
And Carl, yesterday, the trial of Derek Chauvin, the Minneapolis police officer charged with the murder of George Floyd, started. Much anticipated trial. Did you watch any of the proceedings? They're being streamed live on C-SPAN, and a lot of the news, cable news outlets and websites are carrying the coverage live. Did you watch any of it?
Well, as you know, because I work for you, I was very busy yesterday, but I did watch some of it, and there were, you think you know everything about the case, but there were some surprises yesterday, and the one everybody I think maybe had something different. For me, it was that dispatcher who thought that the camera was frozen because she's watching the defendant's knee on the neck of George Floyd, and she thought the camera's frozen. This can't be right. She eventually called the cops on the cops, and that showed me, that was a reminder to me, and it struck me. But other people saw other things. What was your reaction?
I watched a little bit of the proceedings. Look, it definitely brought us all back to last May. And I was watching some of the coverage last night. Van Jones said, it was re-triggering for him and a lot of African Americans around the country to see that video again and have to confront it. And certainly that was and is the strategy of the prosecution. They said, believe your eyes, believe what you see here. Don't be distracted by other arguments. And obviously the defense is going to make the case that what Derek Chauvin did was he followed his training, and that because of George Floyd's cause of death is at the heart of this case, right? Was it from the pressure that was put on his neck by that knee of Derek Chauvin, or was it other circumstances that contributed to it, like the drugs that he had in his system, his health issues that he had prior to May 25th. So we'll see how this all plays out, Carl. But certainly, I think the country's going to be riveted around this case again for, I don't know, how long is this going to go on? Weeks, I suppose.
Right. And, it's been portrayed around the world as a racial issue. But the issue before the jury, this jury anyway, unless there's a federal trial that follows it on civil rights, this is about murder or manslaughter. And race is not the central element. It's not even an element of this crime. And the lawyers outside the courtroom were saying, well, if this was a white defendant, a white person, that's got nothing to do with this. And in a sense, George Floyd's, medical condition, the defense lawyer is going to want to make that the issue, that he didn't even die from having that knee on his neck. He had heart problems. He had fentanyl in his system. He would have died anyway. But this trial is going to hinge on something that everybody in the world wants to know is, why didn't he let him up? Why didn't he help him up? When a guy in custody says, I can't breathe, what training tells a police officer you keep your neck on his knee till he's unconscious? And we've never gotten an answer from Derek Chauvin what he was thinking or why he did it. I don't know that we'll get that in this trial, but that's what this trial is going to come down to. Why didn't the policeman help him instead of hold him down till he was unconscious?
Yeah. I'm sure we'll be talking about this in the days and weeks to come as the trial goes on. I suspect there'll be a number of revelations, Carl. And with the coverage of it too, the last thing I'll say is, we can only imagine that how amped up the public is going to be, when it comes time for the jury's decision and what might follow after. If it's not the verdict that some folks think is right and just, we could be, in for a repeat of some of the stuff that happened last year, which is frightful to think of.
Well, that's what happened in the Rodney King trial. An acquittal led to the Los Angeles riots, and many people died. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope the public would accept the verdict, but that's a big ask, isn't it?
It is. And again, we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. Real quickly, Carl, I want to talk about COVID just because, Joe Biden yesterday was pleading with states to reimpose their mask mandates. Obviously, he criticized Texas and other states for when they dropped the mask mandates. They said he called it famously Neanderthal thinking, right? And Texas now will argue that actually, since infections have gone down and deaths have gone down, that it was the right move to make. But he's pleading, and his CDC director went on TV yesterday and said that she had this feeling of impending doom, that there was a fourth surge coming. I tweeted out a story this morning, Carl, from Time Magazine saying, yes, the vaccines work, but you can't stop wearing masks. You must continue to wear masks. What do you make of all this? And do you think the administration is striking the right tone? And where's the public on this as they get these messages that, we have to still be so afraid of this virus. We have to still do things. Even if we're vaccinated, we have to wear masks. How do you think this is all going to play out moving forward? Is this a political liability for the administration if they're too negative on this, or is it the right move for them to make?
Well, from the start, the medical experts have given us mixed messages, but most of that's because they learn new things, and telling people you have to, after you get your vaccine, you still have to wear a mask seems like it's counterintuitive. It seems like a disincentive. You're telling people to get vaccinated and then telling them, but their lives won't change if they do. But here's the thing, Tom. The science is this: we are in a race. The human race is in a struggle against this virus, and time is on our side if we want it to be. We need to hold the line for another month or two and get most of the country vaccinated. That's what President Biden is telling people, and I'm with him on that, Tom. I'd like to see this whole country vaccinated, and then I'd like to see America turn the great engine of its ingenuity and vaccinate the rest of the world that needs help. That's what I'd like to happen. But in the meantime, is there going to be a fourth surge? Because this virus is a formidable foe. It has mutants, a mutant army, mutations. And so, we're in a race against time.
I mean, but by that logic, Carl, we're never going to be, if the virus mutates, it's, we're never going to be out of the woods. There's always going to be a potential surge around the corner. There's always going to be something to fear. We're always going to have to wear masks. I mean, that's literally the argument. You've been vaccinated, congratulations, but you've got to keep wearing masks because there are potential variants out there. That argument could be used in perpetuity, Carl.
Yeah, but that's not quite right, Tom. So far, we think that the vaccine does protect against the mutations. So we have to get everybody vaccinated and then knock the thing down. That's the argument. The problem with that is that even if you do it in this country, this is a global economy. We travel. People travel around the world. So you actually have to do this everywhere in the world. It is a Herculean task. We're not there yet. I think that you asked my opinion. I think the administration is doing it about right. I think you've got to tell people both messages at the same time. Get vaccinated, and even after you are, be careful. We're not there yet.
Last question is, the idea has been brought up in the last couple of days. The administration has floated the idea of these vaccine passports. You mentioned travel. There have been already restrictions placed on people abroad. They need a negative test to come back into the United States. This idea that you would have to have with you some sort of passport detailing your vaccination schedule to allow you to travel not only internationally but apparently within the states. What do you make of this idea? It's generated some ferocious reaction online, Carl.
Well, it may make sense scientifically, Tom, but I have a real reaction against it. That that's biblical. Jews needed papers to travel in Roman times. It's the biblical story. It reminds people of Nazi Germany in the 30s. It's just not it's not who Americans are. And it really cuts against the grain. I get the science of it. I understand it, but it's a tough one to swallow.
It is. All right, we'll leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief, and this has been the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for March 30th, 2021.